a question I was asking myself the other night, and this is something we don't really think about. Well, like, what is spirit? Oh, you're a spiritual person. A spiritual person has a certain connotation to it, right? You think about before when I was growing up in the 90s, if we say a person is spiritual, then that means they're in church all the time. They go to church 3-4 times a week. They're always reading the Bible. They're always going to services. Now, as that evolved, as I got older and time progressed, and we have all these different modalities come in, a spiritual person can be defined as someone who's a yogi, for example, someone who wears the tight pants and the mala beads and talks really, in a soft voice, and it's become a fad these days, and it's quite disappointing actually, because spirituality is much more than just a fad. It's much more than just a fashion statement. It's much more than just a trend to write on. And I see that happening a lot these days, and people get all these twisted ideologies and expectations and learn to, I guess, manipulate these teachings in ways that will benefit them. So, you think about language and words and definitions, right? If we think about our language, a lot of in English, it's based on the root language of Latin, right? So in Latin, the word aspire or spiritus means to breathe. So spirit means breath, so it's the energy that breathes your breath. You can survive X amount of days without food. I think something like 15, 14 days, something like that, sometimes more. Some people don't eat food at all. You can survive without water for X amount of time, but breath, you're not going to survive more than an hour without breathing, because then you're going to die. Your brain's going to shut off. So breath is the most essential key aspect of life. That's why the word spirit and aspire are tied into one. So if we look at this on a deeper level, spirituality is much more than, like I said, becoming a trend these days. It's being aware of reality that's beyond what we see in our material world. It's being aware of reality to a different level. It's not the reality that just we take at face value for our senses and our pleasure and our external ego gratifications. Spirituality is a deeper level in being connected to the energy that breathes our breaths, or being connected to the energy that lives us and animates us. If we think about all these complex studies of biology, right? We can study anatomy, and we can analyze the tissue of a human hand and the brain, or all these animal bodies we can analyze through biology and map out all the nerve systems and digestive systems and all this stuff. But nothing will work if there's not a consciousness in the body to animate it, to live it, to bring it alive, to breathe its breath, right? So think about it, as soon as an organism, any kind of physical, even if you break the branch off of a tree, it's going to start to rot and decay as life, because there's no more life connected to it. A body of an animal out in the forest, within the first, 12 to 15 hours after it dies, a process of decay already starts. The human body as well. After we die, within a few days, our body starts the process of decomposure. So the spirit and the consciousness animating the body is what's keeping it alive. And as we age, and as our life force energy starts to get lower and lower and lower, and our cells start to age and progress towards, our physical maturity, then it goes into our aging and old age, and finally our body expires. This is a constant cycle of evolution. It goes round and round and round and round and round. In Buddhism, they call this Samsara, the cycle of birth and death. So even in our lives, we're born into certain identities, right? Then we die out of identities and we're born into new ones. We have this constant cycle of create, because we create things in life. We create partnerships, relationships, identities, situations. We consume them, so we live them out. We enjoy them, we learn the lessons, we go through the motions, we learn what we're supposed to learn, I guess, from them. Then they end up destroying themselves. They end up coming to a point where the magic is no longer there and it's time for things to move on. Then we repeat the process again, and this happens our whole life. This create, consume, destroy, repeat. Our minds are in this constant cycle, and we're constantly doing this our entire lives in this physical realm. So spirituality is also stepping into a realm, or stepping into an awareness of consciousness that's beyond something that can be destroyed. It's beyond something that can be created, created in the sense in the material realm. The spirit is the essence that's always there. It's ever present. It has no beginning, it has no end. And just because our body expires, it doesn't mean our consciousness, our awareness, our minds, our spirit is going to expire as well. It's going to move on to the next phase. It's going to move on into the cycle of create, consume, destroy, and repeat. So the spiritual path, I remember I was in Tibet and talking to my meditation teacher, Tenzin. He was telling me the spiritual path, no for happiness. If you want to be happy, don't be a spiritual person. He's like, just make lots of money, get the big house, have people do you massage, have nice car, pretty wife. He said in his language back then. And he said the spiritual path is not for happiness, it's for transcending the self and seeing the self outside of the confines of our material realm and our defined version of reality. And in order to do that, sometimes there are painful experiences required to see beyond these kind of illusions, I guess, we have, that this is all there is. Sometimes our egos have to go through painful deaths. Sometimes we have to be totally destroyed and reborn again. Sometimes we go through experiences that aren't really present, but they give us the most wisdom, and that wisdom brings us to a place where we're solidified inside, because we know that this external realm is not all there is to the picture, and there's something more behind this. So the realm of spirit, in India they call this the Atman, or the higher self. It's the awareness that is aware of itself. You know, you better check yourself, is a saying we have in the English language. Who is the self that's watching the self? Because that's already indicative of there's a division within us, right? There's something that it can serve and teach, and there's something that acts out. So the process of meditation is really good for this, because it gets us into an awareness where we can start to step into our spirit consciousness. We can start to step into the aspect of consciousness that can observe our ego self, observe our body, observe this material realm with a sense of detachment in a way, because it's in it and it's playing the game, but it's not the player. You know, like, think about a game. You're the one controlling the character, but you're not in the game. You're controlling the game. Just like our spirit, it's controlling our body, it's controlling our mind, it's animating this body, but it's not totally attached to it. Because just because my character dies in the game, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna die in real life, right? So just because our physical body may expire, it doesn't mean that the consciousness that's driving our lives expires and goes anywhere. So the process of meditation is really good for starting to step out of this trap of this physical mind and step into the awareness of spirit. And sometimes it does give you painful experiences, but does it with the tough love kind of mentality to teach you things. So if you're a person that's interested in this and you are suffering from PTSD, anxiety, mental illness, these kind of things that are really keeping you trapped in a looping, I guess, constant cycle of looping thoughts, or you're keeping you trapped in a negative place, or you're giving your power away to addictions, or you think you're powerless to control things, or you're facing a ton of situations in your life where you feel like you no longer have control over these kind of things. You're just acting out what you know without any sense of empowerment to stop negative behaviors. In the process of meditation, it can be really good for you, because it allows you to step out of this limited reality and into a higher consciousness. So if you're interested in this, I'll be doing webinars on a weekly basis. That's going to be going down every Thursday, depending on your time zone and how I schedule it. If you're interested, you can click the link below and get more information to make sure that you hop on, because I think if you're a veteran, if you're suffering from any form of mental illness, a practice of meditation is very helpful to get you to a place where you can start to observe, correct, and find a place that's not just rooted in the material realm, that will never change, that's solidified in itself, that doesn't involve itself in the cycle of create, consume, destroy, repeat. And it's something you can really build a foundation of yourself upon. So I hope this information helps you. And if you're interested in learning about the process of meditation as a beginner, click the link below and I'll see you in the webinar.